What if I told you that one man once talked back to the creator of the universe and walked away with the verdict reversed? No lightning bolt, no rebuke, no apology tour, just a shepherd on a mountainside who said, "Undo it," and heaven listened. Seriously, that actually happened. It wasn't just a moment, it was a pivot point that changed everything for an entire nation and honestly for how we understand our relationship with the divine. Picture this: Mount Sinai, 40 days earlier. The air crackled, not just with static, but with the very presence of God. Thunder rolled, lightning flashed, and a nation, fresh out of slavery, stood trembling at the foot of the mountain. They'd just sworn, with fervent hearts, "Whatever the Lord says, we will do." They were all in. And up the mountain, Moses, their leader, was collecting blueprints for a brand new covenant, a way of life that would set them apart. But down below, impatience, that insidious thief of faith, began to boil over. 40 days felt like an eternity. Moses was gone too long. Where was their visible leader? Where was their tangible God? So, they took matters into their own hands. Gold earrings, precious symbols of their newfound freedom, were melted down. A calf, a golden one, began to take shape. And in one afternoon, Israel, the people God had rescued with outstretched arm and mighty wonders, traded the God who saved them for a statue that couldn't even moo, much less save itself. Can you imagine the audacity, the sheer heartbreaking blindness? God saw it all. Pain, raw and searing, flashed across the heart of the Almighty. The covenant was shattered, the trust betrayed, and a death sentence was pronounced. Nation over, contract shredded. Moses, you can keep the blessings. I'll give you a fresh start, a brand new people. It was a complete reset, a divine do-over. But then, Moses, the man who had just spent 40 days communing with this awesome, holy God, opened his mouth, and history, the very trajectory of humanity, pivoted on his words. They'd been free for about 90 days, just 3 short months. No more cracking whips, no more brutal taskmasters, no more brick quotas. Instead it was manna, fresh and miraculous, every single sunrise. God's protective cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night, constantly overhead, guiding them, warming them. You'd think they'd be reveling in this new, glorious freedom, right? But freedom, for all its beauty, can feel slow. It can feel uncertain. It requires trust, patience, and a willingness to live in the unknown. And that's where they stumbled. Instead of embracing the glorious uncertainty of God's leading, they manufactured certainty. They wanted something they could see, something they could control. A golden calf. It was like trading the unpredictable, life-giving ocean for a predictable, lifeless glass of water. Public festivals, fueled by reckless indulgence, a desperate attempt to fill the void left by Moses' absence and their own spiritual emptiness. Now, in the ancient world, you didn't typically craft an idol to completely replace your God. No, you built it to domesticate him. You wanted to keep him close, safe, manageable, like a remote control for the divine. You wanted a God you could parade around, party with, and then, crucially, put back on the shelf when it suited you. They wanted a God on their terms, a God who wouldn't ask too much, wouldn't challenge them to grow, wouldn't demand unwavering fidelity. They wanted a God they could see, yes, but more than that, a God they could manipulate. The problem is, you can't tame fire. You can't put the creator of the cosmos in a box. You can only get burned. And they were about to find out just how hot that fire could get. Their attempt to control God was in reality a catastrophic loss of control over themselves, spiraling into chaos and moral anarchy. They had exchanged the living God for a lifeless image, and the consequences were about to be dire. From the fiery summit of Sinai, God spoke to Moses, his voice thundering with righteous indignation. "Go down, because your people, whom you brought up out of Egypt, have become corrupt. They have quickly turned away from what I commanded them, and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then, I will make you into a great nation." Did you catch that? The pronoun shift? It's subtle, but it's devastating. Your people, not my people anymore. The family tie, the sacred bond snapped. It was a divine disowning, a profound expression of betrayal, and the judgment, it wasn't just punitive, it was protective. Think of God's holiness like the sun. Its pure, radiant energy gives life, but get too close to it with the wrong kind of material and that material will be consumed. To allow such blatant idolatry to stand unchallenged would be to compromise his very nature. Yet even in the midst of this righteous fury, a glimmer of mercy shines through. God tells Moses ahead of time. He doesn't just act, he communicates his intention. It's like a judge announcing a verdict but pausing before the gavel falls. He's inviting a response, isn't he? He's laying out the stakes, presenting the scenario, almost as if he's leaving a door just a crack for someone to step through. Judgment is declared. Yes, the full weight of divine justice is poised to fall, but the final word hasn't been spoken. There's still a breath, a moment for someone to stand in the gap. So what does Moses do? Does he descend the mountain yelling, "I told you so"? Does he seize this incredible opportunity God has just offered him to become the patriarch of a brand new, uncontaminated nation? No, not even close. Moses does something far more audacious. He argues. He actually argues with God, and he does it on three brilliant, interconnected fronts, like a master lawyer presenting his case. First, he appeals to identity. Lord, why should your anger burn against your people, whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? He's essentially saying, hold on God, these people are your brand. You rescued them. Their failure isn't just a mark against them, it's a negative review on your reputation as their deliverer. Their disgrace ultimately stains you. It's a bold move. Second, he appeals to reputation. Why should the Egyptians say he brought them out with evil intention to slay them in the mountains? Moses is thinking about how this will play on the world stage. He's telling God, your rivals will see this. The Egyptians will say, their God is either weak and couldn't finish the job, or worse, he's a malevolent trickster. This will be their proof that you can't be trusted. He's reminding God that his glory isn't just for heaven, it's for the nations to see. And third, perhaps most powerfully, he appeals to covenant. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self. This isn't just begging, this is Moses pulling out the divine constitution. He's holding God to God's own unchangeable word, saying, you signed this contract with your own name, you made an unbreakable promise, a self-sworn oath. Are you going to violate your own foundational law? It's an appeal not to pity, but to divine integrity. This is either the bravest speech ever recorded, or the most foolish. To stand before the incandescent wrath of the Almighty and say, wait, consider this. It's breathtaking. It's a testament to Moses' profound faith and his unwavering love for his flawed, rebellious people. And then the most astonishing thing happens. Scripture says, then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he had threatened. The Hebrew word here is nakam. It's often translated as repented or changed his mind, which sounds jarring for an unchanging God. A better way to see it is that God changed direction. Think of it like a GPS. The final destination, God's ultimate purpose and character, never changes. But when a new, valid input is entered, like a prayer that aligns with his deeper promises, the GPS can recalculate the immediate route. God's announced plan of action, his immediate route of justice, was shifted because Moses' prayer introduced a new road, the road of covenant mercy. This isn't about Moses manipulating God, it's about Moses aligning with a deeper, more profound aspect of God's character, his covenant faithfulness. God's wrath was a righteous response to sin. But Moses, by reminding God of his promises, tapped into the even deeper wellspring of mercy. God's nature never wobbled. His announced course did. One bold intercessor proved that mercy is not weakness. Mercy is the ultimate expression of covenant resolve, a force that can literally reshape history. With God's judgment averted, at least for the moment, Moses hiked back down the mountain. Imagine the scene. The stone tablets inscribed by the very finger of God, heavy in his hands. He descends into the raucous, drunken chaos of the Golden Calf Festival. The singing, the dancing, the sheer, unbridled idolatry must have hit him like a physical blow. And what does he do? In a furious, gut-wrenching act, he shatters the tablets at the foot of the mountain. It wasn't just anger, it was a potent visual aid. He was showing them, you see these broken stones? This is what you've done to God's promise in your hearts. The physical breaking of the law mirrored their spiritual brokenness. But Moses wasn't done. He took that golden calf, the object of their misplaced worship, and he ground it to powder. He mixed it with water, and then, in a truly humiliating act, he made Israel drink their shame. They literally ingested their sin, a bitter, gritty reminder of their foolishness. This wasn't just punishment, it was purification. Then came the grim task of dealing with the immediate consequences. The Levites, Moses' own tribe, rallied to him, swords flashed, and 3,000 people died that day. It was a partial judgment, a severe pruning to prevent total destruction. Here we see judgment and mercy kiss. National survival was secured, yet consequences, sharp and painful, still remained. Sin is serious, its cost is always high, but grace is costlier still, often requiring painful intervention to bring about restoration. And here's the thing, this wasn't a one-off miracle. This was Moses' playbook. Later, on the brink of the Promised Land, Israel once again refused to trust God. After hearing the frightening reports from the spies, they rebelled. Again, God offered to wipe them out and start over with Moses. But Moses, ever the shepherd for his stubborn flock, ran the same play. He appealed to God's reputation. What will the other nations say? He appealed to the covenant. You swore an oath to Abraham, and again destruction was averted. 40 years of wilderness loops, a cycle of rebellion, wrath, intercession, mercy, and painful consequences, revolved around this rhythm. It was a brutal, slow-motion education for a people learning to trust a God they couldn't see. And Moses, through it all, became the archetype for every mediator who stands in the gap, a living embodiment of God's patient, persistent love for a wayward people. So what does this ancient story whisper to us today? I think there are 3 profound takeaways. First, intercession works. It's not about twisting God's arm. Think of a sailor. The sailor can't change the direction of the wind. That's like God's sovereign will. But a skilled sailor can adjust the sails, that's our prayers, to catch the wind and move the ship forward. When we intercede, we are aligning our prayers with God's revealed character of mercy and faithfulness, positioning ourselves to catch the wind of His Spirit and release His power into a situation. Second, God invites conversation. The creator of every galaxy welcomes pushback from dusty lips. It's like a grandmaster of chess who doesn't want to play against a simple algorithm. They want a partner who will engage, challenge, and think. God doesn't want automatons. He wants relationship. He allows us to bring our petitions, our questions, our desperate pleas before Him. This isn't a sign of weakness on His part, it's a profound testament to His love. And third, leadership means standing between. Whether you're a parent, a pastor, a manager, or a mentor, you are often called to stand in the gap. Somebody's future may hinge on your willingness to plead, to advocate, rather than walking away when things get tough. Moses didn't abandon his people, even when God offered him an easier path. He chose the harder route of intercession, becoming a shield between divine wrath and human rebellion. That's the call of true leadership, not to escape the mess, but to stand in the middle of it. The man who argued with God and won didn't win by clever rhetoric alone. He won by refusing to let go of 2 fundamental truths at once, that God is utterly just, and that God is profoundly merciful. He held those 2 truths in tension. Think of a suspension bridge. It's strong not in spite of the tension in its cables, but because of it. Moses stood in that divine tension, refusing to let go of either justice or mercy. In a world that constantly wants us to pick sides, to see things in stark black and white, intercession holds the tension. It embraces the complexity of divine love and justice, and it doesn't let go until heaven answers. Moses' courage still whispers across the millennia, take God at His word, remind Him of His promises, and for heaven's sake, don't be afraid to stay in the conversation, to stand in the gap until the smoke clears and mercy prevails. If this story stirred something in you, if Moses' boldness resonated, drop a comment below. What part of his audacious intercession challenges you the most? Hit that like button if you believe prayer still moves history, still changes the trajectory of lives and nations. And while you're at it, subscribe for more short, deep dives into ancient truths that feel surprisingly powerfully current.